since I'm recording now, I didn't go over this in the first period. They probably won't go back and watch it. That is not the same number. You know, I don't know how to study with -2. It's not the same number as 2. There was one on the quiz where you came up with the same number, but one was positive, one was negative. A lot of people put parallel. Some of you made a math mistake. There were a lot of math mistakes. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do in a second. A lot of math mistakes. Like some of them little exact ones I told you people were going to do. Forgot to write the negative sign with the number that was in the ordered pair. Some of you flipped them. Some of you put the X's on top and the Y's on the bottom when you did slope. Some of you just put the wrong numbers in the wrong. I mean, a lot of math stuff. So you got to clean that. Be careful, clean it up. Some of you didn't write the formula like I told you to write the formula right next to where you're going to do the problem. Put stuff in the wrong spots. When I give you a process, follow it. And there's I've seen the mistakes for 5 years. Well, actually, I haven't even taught geometry now. I've seen the mistakes for 3 years. I'm telling you what kids do. Don't think you're immune to making the same mistakes. Earbuds need to be out, please. So this was a mistake that I saw that I hadn't really covered a lot. What's that? +2. A lot of people made that into a negative number. So they did all the math right. They got that. And then they called that -2, which means they missed. Now, if you then use that the correct way, either for the parallel perpendicular question or whatever, I still gave you credit for that. Because I used the number that you came up, if you showed me what you did with it. That's the next thing. When you are testing for perpendicular on the quiz, show me what the test is. What's the test, Jensen? Show me that. Take the 2, even if like you know it doesn't. Because if for some reason you did the math wrong with the other thing or something, then I can give you more credit. If you just write the wrong answer down, then I can't give you any credit. Show me you know the test. The more you can show me you know, the more points you can get. So again, we tested for same number. It wasn't the same number. 2 is not the same. We tested for perpendicular. They are not perpendicular. Not only, first of all, you might catch an error and because you might think, oh yeah, that's perpendicular. But then when you test it, it's not. Show me all of those steps. Anything you do to figure an answer out, write it down. And you got 0 credit if all you wrote was parallel, perpendicular. If you didn't do any math behind it, it wasn't a multiple choice thing. It was a problem that you were supposed to work out. So some people did that. But let's see. So anyway, the answer to that was neither. They're not the same number. If you multiply them together, it's not -1. So here's the next thing you need to remember to do. Make sure you simplify. Some of you missed problems because you didn't simplify, although that wasn't the norm. Most people, I think, that got that far simplified. If you do this problem, your first instinct might be, should be asking you, but I'm trying to get through one or two. You might think, oh yeah, those are not the same number. And they're definitely not going to be -1 because they're both positive, so that's neither. But what's the problem with that? What did I not do, Sebastian? What did I not do with that number right there? Need to simplify. Your calculator does it for you. It's not like you have to know how to do it. Type in 12 ABC 15, hit equals, and it will give you this. No, it might give it to you like this in the calculator. I don't know how it looks, but it is the same slope. You have to. There's no test for parallel. You just have to know whether or not. Actually, does anybody know what the test for parallel would be? Sort of is what not.
Isn't that like if they have the same slope?
But how do you test? And like, let's say you didn't know to simplify that. There is a way you can actually test it in the calculator. Don't ask me. How could we compare 2 fractions? What's another way without simplifying we could compare? Make it a decimal. If you say 4, do it in your calculators. You don't have one, don't worry about that one. Say 4 divided by 5. What do you get?
0.8.
0.8. Say 12 divided by 15. What do you get?
0.8.
Same exact number. Now it's got to be exact if you do the decimal. Like if it is off like 8 decimals out, if you get a different one, then it's not the same, which really weird. So that is also a way if you're struggling. If you want to compare, just convert them both to decimals, top divided by bottom. And if it's the exact same decimal, then it is the same slope.
It is gonna be on the Excel or.
I'll get to all, let me finish about working now. I'm gonna talk about the quiz and what we're doing tomorrow. So next, slope of the line. The original line is -3. How, and this is more than half the test. You have to understand how to do this, use it. How do I take an original slope, which in this case I just gave to you, I didn't have to calculate it. Many times you will have to come up with it, though. You'll have to calculate it. But then what do I do to create the perpendicular slope? I mean, you could have to simplify it, but it probably won't. It makes it easier to graph if you simplify it for sure. But if you're going to multiply it, it'll still work if you don't simplify it. Like if you're multiplying two numbers together to see if you're getting -1, simplifying it doesn't matter for that. Graphing, though, would make the graphing a lot easier if you simplify it. I would always simplify it. So what do I do? Somebody said it, I think. So what do I do though? How do I change a slope into a perpendicular slope?
Oh, you flip it and. Change.
Oh, please don't take tests during my class anymore. And you have a test tomorrow. I just am going over stuff that's important to the last test. And that's the second or third time he sent a kid considerably late to my class. So that's anyway. What do I do? Malachi,
Change the sign.
flip the sign and
Flip the fractions.
so that's the flip and flip then. Opposite reciprocal is math version, but if you just remember, oh, I flip and flip. I need one positive number, one negative number. So now I have that, positive and negative, and I need to flip the numbers. Now test it. Don't assume you didn't make a mistake and then you did it correctly. Test it. Multiply -3 times positive 1/3 and make sure you get -1 before you move on. All right. So that, again, that's the test. Multiply the two slopes. If you get -1, then you're good. That's a perpendicular slope. Or they're perpendicular to each other. All right, so here's what we're doing for tomorrow. You have a quiz. There's really only two things on the quiz. I could make one of them into two problems, but I think I'm just going to do two questions for the new stuff. So since there's two questions and since the last quiz wasn't great, some people got 100. Oh, the proof stuff, there was a mistake in it. We struggle with proofs anyway. I kind of just use that as extra credit. You got a few of them, then I kind of bumped your other score up. But for the most part, I'm just kind of throwing the proof stuff out. I'm not going to make you do any retakes on it. I want you to be able to get a free retake tomorrow on this stuff. And there's no way I could also put the proofs on it and do that. And I'm just, again, I don't think there's a ton of proof stuff on the EAC. So you are going to get the same 3 questions you had last Tuesday tomorrow. And then you'll get the 2 new questions that are what we did, I guess for you guys Thursday and Friday. So we're going to go over as many of them as we can right here. So first question, this is the repeat. So this is what you did last week. Again, I'm going to tell you, follow the process. Bunch of math errors. A lot of you got a 40 with a bunch of exclamation points because I feel like you had a pretty good understanding of what to do, but there's just a bunch of mistakes. Too many mistakes. Or maybe you did the math right, but then you didn't know at the end what to do. A lot of you were very close, even though you might see a 40 in there when I eventually put it in. So I'm giving you free retake, no tutoring required. Make sure you are ready though. Don't just walk in here thinking you're going to know how to do it when you didn't know how to do it last class or last quiz. So this question is on there. That's one line. That's another line. What do we do? It's like, if you want to write that down, Are the lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So this is on your quiz. Write it down. Again, it's like you guys are gonna remember. It drives me crazy when you sit there and just stare at the board, knowing full well you don't remember it. So are the lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? I give you two sets of points. One set of points is one line. One set of points is another line. What do I need to do to find the answer to this? All right, Sebastian. I need the slope of both lines. That's what all of these boil down to figuring out slopes. You're always going to need two slopes. You might calculate both slopes. So here we calculate both. Sometimes we might calculate one and then just create the second slope by doing the opposite reciprocal thing. Sometimes we might calculate one and then just use that same slope again for parallel. And we're going to create a parallel. Regardless, though, we're gonna be getting two slopes somehow, either giving them or creating one of them. This is like example one mainly on page, I think it's 192. It's sort of like example two. This might not be the right page. You see the question mark. It's either 191 or 192, I think. So example one was exactly like this. And then if you go to the practice problems, there's a whole section where it says example one. They're all just like this. Oh, I forgot to have kids take a picture of it. Hopefully you can figure out how to do this one. It's not the most complex one. All right, so I'm not going to do that. There aren't any good IXLs on it, but I mean, we just went over how to do that. You find the two slopes. If they're the same, simplify them. If they're the same number, they're parallel. If they're not the same and you multiply them together and you get -1, they're perpendicular. And then if neither, that happens, they're neither. Just make sure you show me slope one time. If you're testing perpendicular, like if you know they're not parallel, make sure you show me that. To show me that you know how to test for perpendicular. All right? Didn't tell you that before the last quiz, but I'm telling you now. I need to see you multiply them together to test for perpendicular. All right. I'm not going to do that one. The next one I am going to do. So this is the only other. So there were two of these. There'll be two of them again tomorrow. Two of them. This one was the third question, which you will see again tomorrow. So for that particular question, I'm going to go backwards. And we're going to do it real quick. I'm going to do it pretty fast. It's recorded. Plus this, you already have done a lesson on it. So here we go. Graph the line that is perpendicular. What are we going to start with? What are we going to do first? Just told you what all these are about. What do we do first? We're going to find slope. Oh, I got to get rid of that. All of these are about slope. You are going to need two slopes. Either you're going to calculate the two slopes out, or you're going to calculate, and that was what I just said, parallel, perpendicular, and either. You'll calculate out both slopes. Here, you're going to calculate out one slope, and then you're going to create the second slope by doing the flip and flip thing, a perpendicular slope. So I calculate this. I can use the points. I can do X1, Y1. Some of you labeled these wrong when you did it. Not many people, but some people somehow labeled them wrong. A lot of you didn't write the formula down. You tried to just plug them in, which I told you do not do that. And a lot of you did, and you put numbers in the wrong spot. Some of you forgot negative signs when you put the numbers in. You forgot the negative sign. A lot of math errors. Practice. That's the only way to get good, is to make sure you practice enough to where you have your process down. And you're going to need to be fast tomorrow also. It may only be 5 questions, but every single one of them has several steps of math. So make sure you practice. I need the slope of this. I am not going to do it the X1, Y1 way. I'm going to just do rise over run. I like going to the right first, always. So I go right until I get over that point. That was 6. I go down. What is the slope of that line going to be? Positive or negative? Negative. It's a negative, right? If I understand that, it will keep you from making mistakes. Make sure you understand what the slope should be before you ever do it. So if I were going to do slope is rise over run, my run number is the left and right number. Again, some people, I think, flipped that and they put the wrong one on top. So that's 6. Going down 4, so I went from here down to here. That is a negative. But again, if I just know the slope is going to be negative, doesn't really matter. What do I need to do with that? Joel, what do I need to do with -4/6? Oh, I will do that. But what before I even do that, what can we do with that? Both even, that's hint. Yeah, let's simplify that. Again, if you're testing for perpendicular, it's not a big deal because the calculator kind of takes care of it for you. But if you're going to graph, which we are, flipping it help. I'm sorry, simplifying it helps. Add a line. Now what I need to do, I'm graphing a perpendicular line. That's the slope of the blue line. So this is the flip. Perpendicular slope is the flip thing. So I'm going to take that slope. It needs to be positive. I need to flip the numbers. That's the slope of the line I'm going to create. Remember, you will always need 2 slopes for this quiz. Just know that, always. When we do distance between a point and a line, you're going to need 2 slopes. When we do, are they parallel perpendicular? You'll need 2 slopes. You'll calculate both slopes in that. You won't like create one. Some people did try to create one. If you are given the 2 slopes, like the information to find the 2 slopes, you don't need to create a slope. You only create it when you're graphing or finding the distance. Now, I used my perpendicular slope. I used the point that they gave me. They may not give you a graph, by the way. So just understand, they may not give you a graph, so you can graph it yourself. I think I do on mine, but I'm just saying. So I need to use the point that they gave me. They're telling me my line has to go through that point. So I have to make my line go through that point, which is that point right there. If I go over, so +2 is my run, +3 is my rise, that puts me up there. Why don't I like that? Ayana, why don't I like that, Ayana? I'm not going toward the line. Like, I don't know if that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm going away from the line. I'm trying to graph a perpendicular line toward the line. I'd rather go toward the line. So we said you can always change the direction you're going by changing both directions. The reason that works is -3 over -2 is still a positive number. Oh, it's going to mess up mine. That is still a positive number. This is positive. This is positive. Well, if I use those 2 values, that means I go left 2, down 3. You don't need to truly understand what I did here. Just know you can always reverse, but you have to reverse both directions. Don't go left 2 and then up 3. You have to reverse both. I go left 2, down 3, and that's the same thing you'll do when you find the distance between a point and a line. You'll have to create the perpendicular line. You'll have to go toward the line for sure in that one. And like 90% of the time, except for IXL will have some where it doesn't work. You will land right on a point where you can say, all right, I know that is 0, -2. I know they gave me 2, 1. That was just the point they gave me and said I had to go through. I now have 2 points that I can use to find the distance. So now I'm moving on to how to find the distance between a point and a line. Now, once I've done the perpendicular line, here, we'll do this. We've really been off today. I'll use the mouse better. So now if I draw a line in, you don't really have to draw the line in, but I want to know what is the length of that black line, which I'm about to make a different color. Let's do that. I want to know what is the length of that line. That's the distance between the point and the line. We make a perpendicular line, which is what we just did when we graphed a perpendicular line. And now we use these 2 points, and you can do the distance formula, x1, y1, x2, y2. It's not anything you have to memorize. It's on your reference sheet. And it's just in the same box where the slope is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so distance formula there, slope is there. So you can use the distance formula once you've got the 2 points and just plug it in. Or the other way that I always show you is you can do a squared, b squared, c squared. If I know that yellow line, I'm about to get, anybody still writing anything? I'm about to get rid of all of it. It's recorded, remember. Still writing for you? All right, then what are you doing? I thought you were doodling. I was just kidding. Because you were definitely writing something. So I'm getting rid of all. So once I've done all of that and I've created the perpendicular line, if the problem is to also do the distance formula, I use this point here. I use that point there. Again, I could do x1, y1, x2, y2, but this is where the right triangle thing can be easy. You don't understand what I'm doing? Don't do it. I can draw in a right triangle and use that green line as the hypotenuse. And I just followed grid lines. There's nothing wrong with me doing that. I mean, mathematically, I just drew a right triangle in. I know it's a right triangle because I just followed the grid lines, and we know the grid lines are perpendicular. Now, instead of having to do all that x1, y1, x2, y2 thing to figure out my 2 numbers that are going to get squared in the distance formula, I just count. That vertical side is 3. The horizontal side is 2. Just count the squares. So if it's a right triangle, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So that is so much easier. 2 squared is 4. Oh, that's a squared. So 4 plus 9 equals c squared. Does 13 make sense? That line 13 units long. That makes sense. I mean, you can clearly see how many squares 3 squares are. That is not much longer than that. So 13 does not make sense. We have to take the square root. We don't want c squared. That's what 13 is, c squared. We just want c. So if you take the square root of both sides, then that gives you c on the right. And if you do the square root of that, it's like 3.6 or something like that, which does make sense. Is there a question, Joel? So that is, again, same process as graphing a perpendicular line. It's just you have one more step after them. What is the distance between the 2 points? Well, one point they gave you. What is the distance between the point they gave you and the point where you land on the line? And again, on my quiz, you'll land right on the line. Let's say you did not land right on the line and you landed here for whatever line you create. You can still do it if it's a multiple choice test, and maybe even if it's not multiple choice. You would just estimate what your x and your y was. You would just say, okay, well, that's about negative 2.5. And again, I'm just going -1, -2. Well, it's about halfway in between. Well, the y value is maybe about -5 also, or 0.5, I should say. So you still can do it, even if it doesn't land right on integer. You're just going to have to estimate your x and your y. It won't be perfect. But if it's multiple choice, it'll be close enough. Like they're not going to give you 2 multiple choice answers that are so close together that you can't figure it out from estimating. Again, everything I give you will land right on integers. Every problem I saw when we did book stuff and this stuff, I think landed right on integers. The only thing I've ever seen that doesn't land right on integers when you do this whole backtracking and going down the line thing with a perpendicular rise and run. IXL stuff. Sometimes the IXL that I did, they would land sort of in between the grid lines. And the only way to perfectly do those is this long, I'll show you. Yes, sir. Yes. Oh. Oh, there's a bunch of problems in the book. You can practice for distance between a point and a line. Again, I would go straight to these. Don't even worry. That's a great question. Really good question. It's distance between a point and a line. the lesson, I know, say, the lesson starts on page 209, so the practice column at the end of the lesson. My guess is 213 or 214 maybe. You don't need to really practice graphing a perpendicular line because you're going to do that in this. Like you can just do these by graphing. Don't try to do the algebraic way that the book does it. 215 are these. You do need graph paper though. Like you need good graph paper. You can't really draw a graph of it. Because you remember you want to land when you do the perpendicular slope and you track your way back to the line, you need perfect graphs so you land on the correct point.
I have a graph.
Yeah. If you need graph paper, just take some with you. I don't have a bunch of it, but I can get more. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I was going. Yes.
I have like 3 packs.
Well, I mean, I don't, but if you want to bring some in for people to share. I tell you, what was I just talking about? Regardless, just you don't really need to practice graphing because if you do the distance ones, you're going to graph. So I would just practice doing the distance between a point and a line. Let's see, writing the equation. I'm just gonna quickly. I got to tell you how to do that. All right. I'm gonna. What's that? Oh no, we get out at 9:02, right? I was thinking 54. That's the next class. Okay, we got time. So here's the next question you got to know how to do. Oh, really quickly, let me show you this. So if it says the distance between 2 parallel lines instead of distance between a point and a line, it's the same thing. Find the slope of one of the lines. They'll both be the same or they wouldn't be parallel. Once you find that slope, make it into a perpendicular slope. Same thing we just did with distance between a point and a line. Then just pick one point like that's right on the line. Hopefully there's a good one. Like that's pretty close to right on the line. And now use your perpendicular slope to go toward the other line. And again, hopefully you land right on a point you can use. If you don't, you'll have to estimate. I don't think that was on the quiz I did last year. I don't think I'm going to include it since I'm trying to let you do basically 2 quizzes tomorrow. I may not even put that one on there. And we might put on a future one. Where is the question with the equations? There we go. All right. So here's the other one. This was on last quiz. So we did it right at the end of class. I don't think many people practiced it. This does have a pretty good, I think that now again, the IXL. All right, no. Actually, the IXL on this is fine. And the book problems are fine. They'll tell you how to do it the same way we do it.
Maybe take a picture of it.
It's example 5. That's page 190, either 195 or 196. I can't
We're
remember.
gonna take a picture of
No, I'm gonna give you an IXL screen in a minute. They're all on one screen. So just hold on. I'll let you guys take a picture of that. So, and again, let's do one that's perpendicular because then we have to do it more. So either parallel or perpendicular could be the question. We're going to do a perpendicular. We already did this one once, but I'm going to walk through the steps again. So we want to create a line that is perpendicular to this line, but they give us the line in an equation, not in a graph. So, and we're doing an equation, we're not graphing. Like in the other one, we graph. So what do you think we have to start with? Well, before slope, we always start with slope. I'm just trying to emphasize slope. I don't have to calculate the slope in this though. Oh, there are some easy questions you could get where they just give you 2 equations. Like this is one of the IXLs, and I'm not doing it on the quiz, but you maybe could get this one on an EOC. To me, it's not a high enough level to think that you would, but you might. They might just give you 2 equations and say, are those 2 lines, because an equation is a line, are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? You just look at the slope. If it's the same slope, then they're parallel. If one is, if you multiply the 2 slopes and you get -1, they're perpendicular. It might be possible they give you one of the equations in point slope form. So you would, again, same thing, you just have to know where the slope is in that equation. It's right next to the parentheses where the x's are. So again, same slope, they're parallel. If you multiply the two slopes and you get -1, they're perpendicular. If you don't get either of those, then it's neither. So I need to start with the slope, the -3/4. But if I want to do a perpendicular equation, what do I need to do to that? Austin. So that's the flip and flip thing, right? So I know I don't even need to like do the whole problem to get quite a few points. I'm just flipping that to 4/3. That's a lot of points. Even better than that would be this. To show me that you know the format of slope intercept is that. So if you're not sure where I got, like where I'm getting this is slope intercept form. That one that you all remember, certainly once you hear it, you remember it. That is slope intercept form. So I still will have a y and an x, just like I have a y and an x up here. I'll have a slope, which I got the perpendicular slope because that's what I'm doing in this problem. Now, though, the only thing I'm missing is that y-intercept, the b. That's where we said we have to figure that out. It's not super, super difficult. You just have to remember they're giving me that for a reason. They're saying I need to make my perpendicular line go through that point. So if I'm going through that point, that's a point on my line. Like going through it, it's a point on my line. Well, any point on the line can be used in the equation. So I'm going to use that point in my equation. 6 equals 4/3 times. So my x value is -3. I just took the 6 and replaced the y, the -3 and replaced the x. I still have the plus b. I still don't, it's like a 6. So that's the b. That's what I need to solve for. Now I'm good to go. Now I just do the algebra. So, and we've already done this one in class. So if you weren't here, you're getting it now. If I multiply that together, -4. Now I just get b by itself. Yeah, this is so not the way. Oh, why did I just do that? Hold that thought. I add 4 to both sides. I don't know what I was doing there. So if I add 4 to 6, this goes away. I get b equals 10. Again, b is my y-intercept. Like that's if I graphed a perpendicular line, I would hit the y-axis at, and I'm pretty sure we did this. I'm pretty sure I graphed it in class, and we hit the y-axis at 10. So graphing is a way you can sometimes try to do it. So my final answer for this, y equals 4/3, which is the perpendicular slope. We just flipped and flipped, x, and then plus 10. I had to calculate out the y-intercept. So that example, well, you saw it, it was number 5. Anybody look that page up? Was it 195 or 196?
Oh.
Anybody on that page? It's 195 or 190. But then there's a section in your practice problems that says example 5. They'll all be similar to that. 190. So you can practice. The 196. So you have that one worked out. Do the examples. Don't pack up yet. Don't pack up. Last class packed up, and I'm about to show you all the IXLs and I created a McGraw-Hill lesson. Well, there's only the McGraw-Hill is only for parallel, perpendicular, or neither. I mean, you can just go into your online book and do it. You don't need I don't need to create anything. So those are the IXLs in blue. Oh, I gotta do that one more. There. So there you go. So again, the IXLs aren't perfect. They're not going to do the solution the same way I do it. They're going to do it algebraically, which I mainly for this one. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Oh, wait, maybe there's not one for graphing. There might not be one for graphing. So just know those are not perfect. They do it a little differently, but this one is good here. That one is good for doing that part.
Like in use case always want to, when you don't really need.
Yeah, parallel, perpendicular, neither. There's not a great Excel. That's the one at the bottom. Do the Macron.
Because you told someone to give me a cookie.
So you go into your Clever, you go into the tissue button, set, it's a big bright
Okay,
red.
now you're.
And then once you go into your audio, click on Outreach. Right, and then you'll see that there's a bunch of them. Tomorrow, or night, parallel, perpendicular, neither. And when I went in there, it was like the last one. It's at the bottom, bro. With the big, you know, the one with the big asterisk?
This one.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
No, already depending on A7B, it's like the point slope one. There's not no point.
Wait, Mr. Gill.
Well, A7B, I don't even know if I'm putting that on. In parallel lines, I wouldn't worry. I'm not worry about the other.
I'm gonna do some, I'm gonna do, on the Excel for a retake for that quiz tomorrow.
That one's not. Okay. So that's fine.
And the second, we're ready to do a retake for that one.
Different quiz. No, free retakes the one that I haven't put in the focus. Like the one you took last week, which is the same thing we just.
My class grade is still not graded, even though I keep going in there middle class, it doesn't. Still not updated
What's,
by grade for this class.
if you took, I mean, most everything is graded. But again, I mean, I'll have to go in and look. It just may not change.
I mean, I can't do the retake for tomorrow's quiz after school.
Well, you're getting, you don't need to do anything. The retake is on the quiz. Like the quiz I give you tomorrow has the retake on it. You just need to prepare for it. So all these things here, use what you need, and then what we did in class, I need to.
I just haven't been getting enough sleep, I can't focus.
When you make like a test for the parent, what's the, what happened for this one?
Alright, so you go-
Like multiply the two slopes and get negative one.
Yeah, so that's to determine if they're perpendicular. Perpendicular. Yes. Yeah, I'm just shutting down the recording. Yeah, I just recorded that class. Still recording, actually.